J 感度2ポリフォリン
Well, hello true Mexico friends, this is Paul, an English guy showing you Mexico through my eyes, and today we're talking about culture shock. And yes, culture shock is something which absolutely everybody experiences when they go and live in a foreign country. Of course, it happened to me when I first came to Mexico, and oh boy, I had to get used to these things. And by the way, if this is your first time watching True Mexico, this video is not a rant video. I am not complaining about my life here in Mexico. In fact, my subscribers watching will all know I absolutely love Mexico. That's why I make these videos. So guys, let's get to it. And there are going to be 5 things I talk about. So, number 1 is noise. Mexico is a noisy country. If it's the parties and music coming out of bars or people's houses, or if it's the street noise, which I know so well about from filming these videos on the street, or whatever, there's noise everywhere here. And one might think that it's just the big cities which are really noisy, but I've discovered that this is not the case. You can be in the countryside in Mexico, in a beautiful area, very tranquil, you know, a nice valley, staying there, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're trying to sleep and you hear a big party happening somewhere quite far away. Someone's having band music playing and fireworks with their music echoing across the mountains. That happens in Mexico in my experience. And this situation, especially with loud music late at night, it used to really get to me. I would get frustrated. But I've since learned that Mexico has this, you know, live and let live culture. So let the people have the party until 5 a.m, 6 a.m. We'll suck it up, we won't complain or anything like that. But next time, next week, it's our party, and they aren't going to say anything either. That's how it works here, and I can accept that. And of course, I am generalizing a bit. People do complain about music, especially if it's during the working week, but generally speaking, that is the case. And the next one on my list is time. Now, I was going to call this punctuality, but I decided in the end to go for time. And the reason for this is because punctuality means to be somewhere on time, so the other person isn't waiting for you. But what I realized in Mexico is if someone is 20 minutes late, they're running late, they probably have an idea that the other person is also going to be late. So there is harmony and they end up meeting at the same time. No problem. And the problem I had when I first came to Mexico was that I was going against this harmony by saying, oh, we need to leave on time. For example, if it was a party, oh, we have to be at the party on time. But if you do that and you arrive at the official time, you're probably going to be arriving and the food isn't ready and the hosts aren't ready. So in fact, you're going against the natural harmony of things. And again, guys, I am just generalizing. There are many Mexican people who arrive exactly at the time that was agreed. But generally, it is more relaxed with time here in Mexico. And next on my list is dancing. Yes, dancing in Mexico is very, very important. Many of my subscribers will know that. Now, I'm from England and our dancing culture isn't so developed. Yeah, and the funny thing about that clip is that the joke isn't about the man's dancing. It's actually that Mr. Bean comes in to separate that man from the woman of his dreams. And to be honest, when I first came to Mexico, my dancing was still what you saw in that video. Of course I wasn't dancing salsa in England or in other parts of the world. No way. So it was a huge shock that you know, in Mexico, when I go to things like weddings, you're definitely expected to go up there and dance salsa. This was a huge learning curve for me. I still am not great at it, but I can hold my own. And next on my list are funerals. Now, I know it's a bit of a strange choice, funerals, so I'll explain why. And for the people who don't know, behind me here is a funeral hall, and you see them all over the city. And what happens here are wakes. So when someone passes away, friends and family all gather in one of the halls there around the body. And what tends to happen is people stay in that hall all night, and then the following day, in non-suspicious circumstances, the body is buried the next day. And why was this a culture shock for me? Well, I'm not Catholic, and before I came to Mexico, I had never been to one of these wakes at night. It was my first time here in Mexico City. In England, what tends to happen is the funeral takes place in the early afternoon, something like that, and then after the funeral, people gather at one of the houses of a family member and drink tea, coffee, eat biscuits, have a chit chat, that kind of thing. And I guess what surprised me about wakes in Mexico is that, you know, when you go into that hall in the evening, it could be that you are leaving that hall the next day when it is light outside. And the final one on today's list is saying goodbye. Now, it can take a long time to say goodbye here in Mexico. Of course, I'm just generalizing. It's not everyone, but usually it is the case. For example, you can be at a party, and from the moment you say goodbye to the first person to the moment you actually leave, 45 minutes or more could have passed. And I guess it's because in Mexico, you say goodbye to everyone, you kiss the females on the cheek, that kind of thing. So of course you tend to have some chit chat along the way. In England, it's different. Usually you can make a much quicker escape. Well guys, that's all for today. And if you have your own culture shock experiences in your travels around the world, please do let me know in the comments below. And if this is your first time watching True Mexico, please do subscribe. It'd be great to have you in the True Mexico community. So I'm Paul, this is True Mexico. Hasta luego.